Hello and welcome to The Top Story, a podcast with the headlines of the day from our correspondents around the world. I'm Wang Zihang. Coming up in this edition, people in Gaza continue to receive humanitarian aid as the ongoing ceasefire entered its fifth day. A US federal judge has temporarily blocked President Donald Trump's executive order to revoke birthright citizenship, calling it unconstitutional. Brazil is bracing for another possible dengue fever epidemic this year amid a re-emergence of a severe strain of the mosquito-borne disease. We begin in the Middle East. The Gaza ceasefire has brought hope to some Israelis and Palestinians, and relatives of Israeli hostages have been urging the government to fully adhere to the terms of the agreement. But challenges remain as the next stage of the deal approaches. Mikhail Badvid tells us more.
In Israel, the entire nation is focused on one goal: bringing the 94 hostages held in Gaza back home. According to the ceasefire agreement between Israel and Hamas, during the first phase, 33 hostages held in Gaza are expected to be freed in exchange for 1,904 Palestinian prisoners and detainees. Among those expected to be freed during the first phase is Israeli citizen Ofer Calderon, who was kidnapped from his home at Kibbutz Nir Oz along with two of his children. While the children were released in November 2023, Ofer has remained in captivity. Sharon Calderon, Ofer's sister-in-law, has been tirelessly advocating for his release over the past 15 months.
Ofer is on the list. But, and it's a big but, we don't know if he's dead or alive. We have to bring everyone, until the last one, dead or alive, we have to bring everyone. But this is a start. We have to start somewhere, and this is a good start.
The ceasefire agreement is divided into 3 stages. Negotiations for the second stage have yet to begin, set to start on the 16th day of the first phase's implementation. The initial deal required months of intense mediation efforts, and relatives of hostages are worried about potential complications. Still, they remain hopeful that both Israel and Hamas will fully commit to the agreement. Some hostage relatives, such as Dani El-Garat, whose brother Itzik is being held in Gaza, fear that with each passing day, their loved ones' lives are at greater risk.
We know that if this deal will happen, what was happening in July, some of the hostages was alive then, and now they are not longer. There are some members of the government over there that want to sabotage this deal. We need to make sure that they are going until the end and bring all of them.
Sharon says she can hardly sleep at night. All she wants is her family back and the conflict to be over.
I want to go back home. I live in Kibbutz Ufa. I haven't been at home since October 8th when we got released from home. It's not safe over there. I cannot go back. I want to go back home. So if the war will end, we can go back home, all of us. The hostages, the soldiers, and us.
One of the biggest challenges in completing all phases of the agreement is determining Gaza's political future. With Israel and the United States firmly against any role for Hamas, experts argue that a viable solution may depend on a broader coalition.
I don't think there's any other solutions for the Gaza Strip that is not Palestinian and Arab. When talking about Palestinians, it means the Palestinian Authority, not local forces in Gaza. Local forces in Gaza, basically, there's no such thing. There's no such option. Only a combination of Arab countries and the Palestinian Authority, at least if not now, then in the coming years.
Many in Israel are counting on support from U.S. President Donald Trump. Though following his inauguration on Monday, Trump expressed doubts about the ceasefire's viability, many Israelis believe he has the influence to encourage both sides to uphold the deal.
That was Mikhail Badvid reporting. Meantime, people in Gaza continue to receive humanitarian aid as the ongoing ceasefire entered its fifth day. Trucks loaded with food, medicine and clothing have been entering through Rafah, the main location linking the strip to the outside world. Rami Al-Magari has more details from Gaza.
The ceasefire deal between Israel and Hamas brought both relief to Gaza. Since the ceasefire began on January 19th, truck convoys full of goods and fuel have been entering Gaza daily. This has led to a drop in prices. Various kinds of foods and commodities are now available in the local market after 15 months of scarcity during the conflict with Israel. The supplies of food and medicine will help improve nutrition for everyone living here.
Before the truce, we did not have these goods. Now, with the truce, chicken, rice, and rations are available. We hope that prices will continue to fall so that people can buy these goods due to their urgent need for them.
In the meantime, local restaurants have reopened after repairs and replenishing inventories of beef and poultry.
4 months before the truce, the restaurant was closed. Now we have been open for days after the long closure because the goods were not there and the prices were high, as the price of a kilo of meat reached 109 shekels. Now it has become 50 shekels.
UN relief organizations and NGOs have resumed distributing food parcels to the displaced who have suffered severe food insecurity during the fighting. Malnutrition here is widespread. The World Health Organization says Gazans still face the risk of famine.
This is the first aid I have received in more than 6 months. With the beginning of the truce, aid began to return. I am not working at the moment. It is very difficult for me to be able to buy food or anything for my children, even with the entry of goods, because we have no income to begin with.
The terms of the ceasefire deal call for 600 truckloads of humanitarian aid, including 50 carrying fuel entering the territory every day. That aid will help meet the widespread need. Though flow of aid for Gaza continues since the ceasefire deal was reached earlier this week, local residents in Gaza say that many goods and commodities are lacking. Others complain of their inability to afford the goods available in the local market. At least the aid now is reaching many people.
That was Rami Al-Magari reporting. Over to the Americas. A U.S. federal judge has temporarily blocked President Donald Trump's executive order to revoke birthright citizenship, calling it unconstitutional. The court's restraining order presents a challenge to Trump's crackdown on illegal immigration and prevent his policy from being enforced nationwide for 14 days. Trump has expressed plans to appeal the decision. Here's Addis Tianshan with more from Los Angeles.
Donald Trump's decision was essentially aiming to deny U.S. citizenship just based on the birthplace starting on February 19th. And we also understand the executive order essentially called for all U.S. agencies to stop issuing or accepting any document that would recognize that kind of citizenship for those people, for people who are born on U.S. soil. As soon as he issued this order, it immediately drew a widespread criticism. It basically brought about 5 different lawsuits from a total of 22 different states and a long list of immigrant rights organizations. And we do understand, as of Thursday, we've also heard from a federal judge, the U.S. District Judge John Kuffiner, who said that this was blatantly unconstitutional, and therefore he temporarily blocked this decision. Now he's called for a hearing on February 6th, so that means until that day, for the next 14 days, the Trump administration will not be able to take any steps regarding that decision. In his objection, Judge Kuffiner was pretty confident. He said that he's been sitting on the bench for over 4 decades now, and he went on as far as to say that he has never seen any other case where the question presented is more clear than this. In fact, he even criticized the Department of Justice attorney Brett Shumate, asking if he personally believed that this order was constitutional. In fact, the response was yes, absolutely. So The Trump administration, the Department of Justice, and Attorney Brett Shumate seems pretty confident themselves. They are saying, regardless of the 14th Amendment, they believe that this is a lawful order. And come that hearing date on February 6th, they said that they will go ahead and vigorously defend this executive order, which they say is constitutional. So there is a very clear divide here, but we will only see after February 6th whether the judge will be convinced by any of their arguments or whether he will go ahead and put a long-term blocking for this decision.
There was Eddie Stianshan reporting. In South America, Brazil is bracing for another possible dengue fever epidemic this year amid a re-emergence of a severe strain of the mosquito-borne disease. The first 3 weeks of 2025 saw 87,000 possible cases and 8 confirmed deaths. Lucrecia Franco has more from Rio de Janeiro.
Rio de Janeiro public health workers back in action in the battle against dengue, inspecting gardens for standing water, racing against the clock to prevent another outbreak. In the bushes, a plastic tray, suspected larva of one of the deadliest disease carriers on Earth, Aedes aegypti mosquitoes, carefully collected for laboratory inspection.
We collect larvae to identify mosquito species and raise awareness among the population. It is essential for people to understand that even a small bottle cap or any object carelessly discarded that accumulates water can serve as a breeding ground for mosquitoes and potentially trigger an outbreak.
At the start of the year, Brazil's Ministry of Health launched a contingency plan to address dengue, Zika, and chikungunya. The plan focuses on strengthening national coordination among government agencies. Measures include scaling up the release of mosquitoes infected with Wolbachia bacteria, which reduces the spread of the virus. On the other hand, faced with a supply bottleneck, the government has only been able to secure a meager 9.5 million doses of a Japanese-produced vaccine for a population of over 216 million people. But it is the return of dengue serotype 3, which hasn't been detected in Rio de Janeiro since 2007, that is creating a heightened sense of urgency for prevention. Rio's Health Secretary, Daniel Sorans, says there is a real concern that there could be a surge in severe dengue cases in 2025.
There are 4 serotypes of dengue circulating globally, with types 1 and 2 historically dominating in Rio de Janeiro and Brazil. However, type 3 is now spreading, and because there is little immunity, the population is particularly vulnerable.
Currently, there are no cures for the dengue virus, making the fight against mosquito breeding on the ground the best strategy to prevent future outbreaks. The hope is that Rio's early coordinated efforts will prevent another record-setting number of cases in 2025.
That was Lucrecia Franco reporting. And finally, in Africa, Uganda has received 10,000 mpox vaccine doses from the European Commission. 10 people have died since the outbreak began. Vaccination campaigns are also underway in other African countries such as Rwanda, Nigeria and the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Michael Baleki has more from Kampala.
The European Commission, through its Health Emergency Preparedness and Response Authority, delivered a consignment of vaccines to Uganda. The delivery is a crucial support and vital for curbing the spread of the virus and protecting public health. The viral disease has claimed the lives of 10 people so far. Health authorities report that mpox infections are increasing, with a higher percentage of cases reported in males.
The outbreak is prevalent among mobile workers. These include truck drivers and border riders, vendors, bar attendants, commercial sex workers, and casual laborers. Vaccination will target high-risk populations, as I've mentioned, close contact of confirmed cases, and frontline health workers currently based in areas with active transmission.
The consignment is part of a donation of more than 200,000 doses to the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, aimed at tackling the ongoing Mpox crisis across Africa. Mpox vaccination campaigns are already underway in Rwanda, Nigeria, and DR Congo, the epicenter of the disease.
That was Michael Belaki reporting. Now recapping today's headlines. People in Gaza continue to receive humanitarian aid as the ongoing ceasefire entered its fifth day. A U.S. federal judge has temporarily blocked President Donald Trump's executive order to revoke birthright citizenship, calling it unconstitutional. And Brazil is bracing for another possible dengue fever epidemic this year amid a re-emergence of a severe strain of the mosquito-borne disease. That's it for this edition of The Top Story, a podcast that brings you world headlines every weekday. For more news in politics, business, sports and culture, you can subscribe to the Beijing Hour, a one-hour podcast news magazine program. We welcome and appreciate all ratings and reviews. I'm Wang Zihang. Thank you for listening.